The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everybody, this is Dan Jacobs from Law Ruler. We're going to go ahead and get started in just a few moments. I'll be presenting today since Reed Witters is not going to be available. Unfortunately, he had to be evacuated due to the fires in Southern California where he's based out of. So I'll be giving the educational webinar today. We should have some interesting things to review, and any questions that you have, we will answer at the end of the presentation. So I'm just going to go take a quick pause, let a couple more people jump in, and then we'll get the ball rolling shortly. Okay, all right, I'm back. So just to recap, this is Dan Jacobs with Law Ruler. I'm substituting in for Reed Witters. He's not going to be able to join us today, unfortunately. He's based out of Southern California, and due to the wildfires, he's not going to be able to attend us as a presenter today. So I'm going to be subbing in for him. We're going to have some great educational things to share with everybody, some statistics about the industry, some of the pitfalls that other firms are facing, that there are some pretty good solutions out there to handle in regards to the intake process. This presentation, the webinar, will be recorded. So if anybody would like access to the recording, we will be sending out an email from David Rodriguez after the presentation. And if you'd like a copy of it, just reply back and let him know, and we'll be happy to provide it to you. So I'm going to go ahead and get started now. So the goal is, how do I sign 20 to 30% more clients? Now, this is kind of a loaded question, and it's certainly something that's an industry problem. I'll share with you that, this is an educational webinar. It's not just a pitch for Law Ruler. So we're going to go through some interesting things. I just wanted to share with everybody, if they're not already part of Law Ruler, who Law Ruler is. We originally built the oil claim calculator software that was used by several hundred plaintiff firms nationally, help them file claims against BP on behalf of victims of that oil spill disaster. So we have, since that point in time, segued into the legal case intake space, and we've been very successful nationally with helping firms improve their operations. So what are you going to learn from the presentation today? Well, I guess that's the optimal question here. How other law firms, oh, and by the way, just to say this again in case anybody missed it, if you want to speak and ask a question, please type those in the question chat box at the bottom in the webinar window in GoToWebinar. There is a space there where you can send in a chat or raise your hand for a question, and we will answer those at the end of the presentation if there are any questions. So we're on broadcast mode, which is how the webinars work at this point. So what do you learn from today? How other firms are using follow-ups to convert more potential clients into signed clients. There are classifications called fence sitters and window shoppers, and they are a bit tricky to deal with if you don't have the right strategy as well as platform. So we're going to be speaking about strategy initially. So, and what is the secret weapon? Intelligent follow-up automation that'll get you your message read almost 100% of the time. Real critical thing to know. We'll be going through that as well, and what those numbers look like industry-wide. And is there an easy button for, helping my law firm increase conversion of leads by 20, 30%, leads, referrals, potential clients? The terms are kind of fungible in how they relate to one another. So that's kind of high-level aerial view of what we're going to be learning today. So part 1 of 2. what we're going to go through the science of intake at a law firm and how you can win. Now, this part's going to be more data driven, educational. It's really going to focus on, some of the numbers and statistics in the industry and what some of those issues look like and how to identify them at your firm. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to proceed forward from there. Okay, so let's kind of start at the beginning here. What is the problem? The problem is that the industry, the marketplace for law has just gotten so much more competitive than it was a couple of years ago, 5, 10 years ago. And you need to update your strategy for intake and conversion. If you haven't done so, there are some tips that we're going to teach you. And, it's going to relate to, how do you get those potential clients to sign with you? I think it's fair to say that every law firm gets leads, referrals, potential clients contacting them, whether they're coming through a TV ad or billboard or offline flyers, mail order, that type of media, or online, where, if somebody's looking for an asbestos firm, there's so many options out there today. Who's somebody going to choose and why are they going to choose your firm? I think is the $6 million question. Let's look at the numbers here, first of all. These are some ballpark industry figures that, you should be aware of if you are not already aware of them. More than 38% of clients are looking for law firms online. And you might have a great brand in your region, whether it's local, statewide, or national. You might have the best and most recognizable brand. However, that is not necessarily going to get you the clients by itself. In 2015, over 50% of the people, which is actually 60% now at this point in time, are they're going online. They're going to Google, they're going to Microsoft Bing and other places, and that's where they're going to look for attorneys. And you have to make sure that you're equipped with the right strategy and platform in order to help solve this problem, because you can't afford to not convert these opportunities that come to you. It becomes a huge issue where you're spending and investing the money to get the clients and brand yourself, and you want to make sure that you see it through. So, you look at the average case settlement values. I mean, these are ballpark numbers, but motor vehicle accident case, $10 to $25,000 average. A mass tort like Xarelto, maybe $160,000. So what you're doing right now without the right strategy and platform is essentially this. You have, the water fountain, and it's not gushing out. It's dripping. These little drips, these splashes. How much are they worth? They're so minuscule you might not even notice them. So, just sharing that. We had a glitch in the presentation deck, but we'll be right back here. Okay, so those little drips out there, those are each worth one of these or something different. So you want to be very mindful of this. This is the type of strategy and platform that you want to implement where you have that safety net. You have a follow-up mechanism that is effective, that will actually be attuned to the audience. For example, you're not going to market to millennials and you're not going to try and convert millennials the same way you're going to try and convert the baby boomers. If you do that, you will have some modest success. But if you're trying to just have a strategy where you're just making phone calls to millennials, they're probably going to think there's an emergency if somebody keeps calling them. They're probably going to think there's something terrible going on. So you want to enable texting, even emailing, and some other strategies, and do it in a very tactical way if you want to be able to get with that audience, because that is the biggest growing segment at this point, for new potential clients. So you want to have that safety net, which is not just strategy, but it's also a platform. So let's look at a little bit more of the science and the data of this whole thing here. So this flow chart here is essentially, what happens at almost every plaintiff law firm. You're doing online SEO, blogging, pay-per-click advertising, TV billboard marketing, attorney profile listing services, and you're getting the inquiries. You're getting new potential clients that are contacting your law firm. That's great. That's the starting point. Your job's not done at that point, unfortunately. So, and then there's a variety of ways that those potential clients are going to contact your firm. They're going to go through the website contact forms. They're going to call you, and maybe you have a call center or intake center answering at certain hours of the day, or they're going to call directly into the firm and get your front desk or whomever is answering the calls. They're going to come in through live chat, or they're going to be a referral from another firm, whether it's a warm referral transfer or they just give them your name and number. And unfortunately, once they contact you, this is a little thing that most people don't realize. This is where the problem really begins. This is called a breakage point. And they're contacting you, but unfortunately there's a lot that's not happening there that you need to have a more up-to-date, strategy and platform. So we're still speaking about strategy at this point. So that's kind of where the problems begin. So that's called, the broken process. You want to have something standardized and automated that's going to help you with follow-up and conversion. So, moving forward from there. So what is that breakage point? It's called a manual intake process. It is a very costly strategy to practice. What you don't want to do is, if you have a potential client and they contact you, you want to not let them go. You want that one call close, is what it's known as, if you can get it. If you can get the one call close, you're going to see a lot better results. So the one call close is going to require maybe a bit more training, maybe a bit more of a scripted approach for some of your intake staff. It also may require some additional tools in a platform such as LawRuler. Not really a pitch, but there you go. So your odds of signing up a client decreases by 40%. 40% if you let them hang up on that first call without signing them. That's a scary number. You're essentially losing half of your opportunities. If somebody's interested in moving forward and you don't have the right platform and strategy to sign them up, you're going to erode your marketing investment. You want to win. You want to get that investment, and you want to carry it forward and sign more cases and have a great day. That's the goal here. And that's what we're going to share with you, some more strategy on how to do that. What you don't really want to do, this is just our personal recommendation. You don't want to use these type of tools as your intake solution. Pen and paper, Outlook, Gmail. For example, somebody goes to your website, they fill out the contact form, or they call you, and then you get an email saying there's a call or there's a new lead. Sits in your inbox for 5 minutes, 25 minutes, 55 minutes. Notice I'm speaking in minutes, not hours or days or weeks. You have minutes to respond to people, or you're going to lose them. And you have to have automation in order to be able to respond to people quick enough. So you're not going to have automation with pen and paper, unfortunately. Outlook, Gmail, yeah, maybe you can have an autoresponder, but people know it's coming from a computer. Excel, put your new leads in Excel, Google Sheets. By the time you data enter them in there, they're gone. Using practice management for intake. There are a lot of good practice management systems out there that have been around for a long time, and they have things in them called quote-unquote intake wizards. Those are not an intake platform. Those are just another data entry thing. You may as well use Excel for your practice management if you're going to be manually data entering something inside of an intake wizard. You need automation. Automation is how you win. That is both a platform and a strategy that you must improve on and implement, as well as other CRMs. Like CRM, when I say CRM, I mean like a Salesforce or something along those lines that's very generic, and it's designed to let you manage contacts and leads and accounts, which is great. But if it's not geared for legal and what we call intake in legal, it's just not going to be effective. So you want to make sure you not only have the right strategy, you have the right platform. Otherwise, you're looking at that garbage can with all the $100 bills, which not the greatest thing. So let's talk about what a follow-up is and why it's necessary. Follow-ups and nurturing are a critical part of the conversion process. So they're not optional in this day and age. It's so critical that you have a automated follow-up approach that is going to support your staff, because your staff can only get so far. Because if you remember back to when I was on that slide a few minutes ago, if you are answering intakes and they are millennials, and you keep calling them because somehow you missed their call, maybe the person they called at the firm was not available to kind of, qualify them, whatever it is, you don't have them on that first call, and you keep calling them back, hey, you're just calling them. Hey, you called our firm. We're happy to help you. Now the person you wanted to speak to is available. That might sound great. But again, when somebody keeps calling a millennial over and over again, they think something's wrong. They don't respond to that type of media a lot of the time. You have to diversify your strategy for follow-ups, and you have to have some automation in there. It's a must these days. Consumers require 6 to 7 touches before making a decision. Repetition equals success. When I say repetition, I'm not referring to sending the same email 6 to 7 times in a row with the same content that might be dull or not relate to the audience. When I say repetition and 6 to 7 touches, I'm referring to 6 to 7 different touches across different medias. When I say medias, I mean phone calls, I mean text messages, I mean emails, I mean a blog on your website that you're going to text or email somebody a link to saying, I see that you just were in a motor vehicle accident. We are here to help you. We're very good at this. Please review this blog on our website where we actually have somebody else who is in a motor vehicle accident in your area and how we help them and all the questions that they had when they first had an accident. It's not a secret that when somebody gets in an accident, it's really unfortunate and they may be injured. And most people have very similar questions. They want to know what to do. They're in a panic. Everybody's going to dial 911 most of the time, but what else do they do? How do they handle this without blowing their case? How do they prepare for these things and make sure they have the correct treatment? Sharing that type of knowledge and doing so with a text message and an email and doing so as part of a follow-up system. Maybe they don't respond the first time when you email them if and say, hey, we're interested in talking to you. You call them, you text them, you email them, no response. Maybe your second or third follow-up is, please review how we helped somebody else or how we answered the questions for somebody else who was in a motor vehicle accident. Those are the types of things where you're sending them back to your website, for example, to a blog or an article you put on there, or maybe even a video testimonial. Maybe it's a member of the firm, or it's a client. If you can get a client to give you a testimonial, that's even better. Let them, spend 15 to 20 seconds explaining how your firm helped them and all the questions they had when they first got in that accident or whatever the legal matter is. That type of stuff is gold. But you can't do those kinds of things with phone calls. And you can't do those kinds of things without automation in scale. So you can't do it in scale without automation. And phone calls cannot send people links to your website with videos, testimonials, or just, just knowledge that you want to share that makes you great. So follow up with a purpose, empower your staff with the correct platform, and employ the right strategy. This kind of goes back to what I just mentioned. It reinforces that point. Why not keep doing things the way you were? When I say the way they were, I'm referring to before this webinar. I'm not referring to 10 years ago. I'm talking about right now. So if you don't communicate in a way that your audience responds to, then unfortunately you're going to lose them. And different people respond differently to different media. And this goes back to the earlier point. Millennials, you have to engage them differently than baby boomers. Millennials are going to respond more to text messages and websites. They're going to respond less to phone calls and email even. So you want to make sure that you cover all your bases, and that's what I'm referring to when I say you need a strategy that's going to support that. And just sending text messages, hey, you know what? You can go online, you can find something to send texts. But if it's not part of a platform and it's not automated and it's not tactical across different practice areas, you should not just be sending people messages saying, please contact our firm, we're here to help you. You should be sending, if they're in a motor vehicle accident, you should be sending them a text with content about a motor vehicle accident information to your website. You always want to drive them back to your website. You have great branding on your websites, you got to leverage it. So always refer people back to your website. It always helps, strengthen your case that you're going to be the firm that they choose. emails, those might be more effective, with the baby boomers at times, but we're finding that texts are better for every generation. Phone calls, those are pretty good with the baby boomers and some millennials, but the texting seems to be where it's at. But you can't just send texts that are generic. It has to be very tactical. If somebody is in a slip and fall and they're slip and fall and you have that piece of information, you need to send them a link to a video or content on your website about how you help people in a slip and fall incident. You don't want to send them to the home page of your website where they can choose from motor vehicle accidents, trucking accidents, slip and fall accidents, mass torts, family law, whatever else you're into. You want it to be extremely content oriented and within the practice area that they're in. You have to qualify, and there are a lot of ways that you can actually tailor your marketing so you know who's contacting you. You can have different landing pages on your websites. And in each of those landing pages, this is a little tip. So I would definitely, write this down. And again, we will be providing the recording of this webinar afterward. If anybody wants the recording to review it again, you should have different areas on your website. And in those different, like you might have one web page just for auto accidents, one web page for trucking accidents, one for slip and fall, one for each mass tort. And inside of there, you're going to have a slightly different variation in the back end. Nothing that the potential client or web visitor can see, but you want to have slightly different variations in those contact forms so that when somebody contacts you through your Xarelto page, you're going to know it's a Xarelto caller. So you can deliver them what? Xarelto content. That's the goal here. Has to be relevant content, has to be within the practice area that they're calling you about. So you can actually do that programmatically without even having to ask them why they're calling you, but you want to do that anyway, of course. And you'll also know where they contact you from if you set up your marketing correctly. You want to use call tracking numbers. Yeah, vanity numbers are a slippery slope because they're great for branding. However, they're not great for finding out where people found you. So a lot of firms who have vanity numbers, they also set up individual call tracking numbers for direct mail, for some TV ads, for some online and different landing pages, because you can actually programmatically design your landing pages on your website. Like you might have one landing page for Xarelto, one for motor vehicle accidents. You can design each of them so that when somebody hits that button and gives you their information, you can immediately send an automated text. If it's a Xarelto web page, send them a text about how you help people who were, who experienced bleeding as a result of Xarelto. If it's an auto accident page, send them information about what to do as soon as you get into an accident. These are the things people are looking for. This is why they contact an attorney when they have an accident. Certainly people want to be made whole, but they're also looking for answers, and you want to be that resource. And you can be that resource, and you can deliver them content that is so oriented to them that they're going to say, wow, this law firm actually gets me. They know what happened to me. They can relate to me. What's one of the oldest secrets in business? People do business with people they trust, that they like. So it's going to make them trust you and like you if you send them content that actually makes sense. Sending people generic content, we're the best law firm out there, please contact us back. We'll be happy to help you. If they're in a car accident versus the firm that sends them knowledge about what to do after you get into an accident. Example, 5 things to do after you get in a motor vehicle accident. Somebody's going to read that. That's going to interest them. You send that to my phone, I'm going to click on it and read it if I was just in an accident. And if it sounds good, if there's a video on there, I'm going to love it. And I'm going to probably deal with those people. You want that to be you. So moving on. Excuse me. So which is a better solution to increase conversion, automated or manual? Well, it's an interesting question. We feel the answer is both. You want your staff to be the best at what they do, and you want to back them up with intelligent automation. When I say intelligent automation, I'm not referring to sending them an automated message that's the same thing 6, 7 times in a row. It goes back to what I just reviewed, which is sending them content that's tailored to their practice area, that's going to relate to their need, that's going to show that you are somebody who gives knowledge. Knowledge is what people want. They want to trust you and like you. and you need to give to get, you need to give to receive in that area. So I think some of these things here are self-explanatory. We did a secret shopper and, contacted various firms nationally just to see how they'd respond if, we contacted saying, hey, I had an accident, or, my family member, is in the hospital and they took Xarelto, or whatever it might be. It's a known fact in this day and age. You have to have automation when you get new leads, new referrals, new calls. You have to have that automation, because otherwise you can't respond quick enough. And all that happens is, unfortunately, they fire up their Google browser and they're going to go to the next firm on Google and the next firm on Google. Even if you're the one they saw on TV, you're the one they saw on a billboard, you're the first one on Google in paid advertising or in organic, whatever it is, you could be number one in the listing. It doesn't mean you're going to get the client unless you have the right strategy, and the right platform helps too. So if you make them wait, they're going to find someone else, unfortunately. These things, probably don't happen constantly at the firms that we polled. However, they do happen, and they did, because these are the responses that we got, essentially, where some people had a phone system that was stuck, or another tip, always have live answering when people call your firms. Very, very important. You want to have a human being answer the phone when somebody calls your firm. Do not put them on hold. Somebody live constantly. If you do not have the staff to do it internally to field all the inquiries you're getting, then you should probably have some kind of rollover set up with a call center or an intake center. Just advice there. If you make somebody wait when they call, you're going to have more than a 40% drop-off rate. You're going to lose a lot more than that. So you want to make sure that you have live representatives at your firm or at a call center answering calls. They got to be live, and that person has to not say things like, the attorney will call you back in an hour, or in 24 hours, or in a year if they're interested. That's not a good message, because we live in the data age. There's fiber optic. We can press a button and it will send an email to somebody thousands of miles away before I can blink. Everybody knows that. Everybody has smartphones. People will go to Google and they will call the next person and when they answer the phone and they make them feel important and don't tell them the attorney will call them back sometime later in the future, they're going to hear you. And then you want to make sure you have those follow-ups. You want to get those 6 to 7 touches in that are tactical and relative to their practice area. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about Law Ruler. So, this is an actual result of a client that used Law Ruler. Law Ruler is an intake platform. Yes, we are the ones who sponsored this presentation and are the speakers, but, we just discussed a lot of strategy. So we're going to kind of segue into what the platform is. So, for our existing clients attending, you may know a lot of this, or you could always have a refresher, and, maybe there's some new features that you need to jump into as well. So feel free to check that out. But what you'll see here is really important to see the distinction. If you look in red where it says number of leads per month, 200 before Law Ruler, and then after Law Ruler, notice how the number is the same. We do not sell leads. We are not a marketing company. There are lots of good people out there to do that. If you need any recommendations, we're always happy to provide those for you. What Law Ruler will do as a platform is we're going to employ the strategies that we shared during this beginning of this webinar, and we're going to help you increase your conversion in new cases. We find that we're able to help firms increase their conversion by 20 to 30% on average. So if you look at this equation, this is a 30% increase. This firm went from $2.8 million in settlements to their next month had $5.76 million in settlements in cases that were signed. That number is a monster. And that was only after 1 month. And this particular firm was doing television advertising for Xarelto mass tort cases. So if you do personal injury and these numbers look high to you, that is why. So then, there are similar results for, motor vehicle accident and other personal injury matters. As far as increasing the conversion, the numbers are just going to plug in differently. So we're going to segue now into, more of the platform side of things. What is Law Ruler? How does Law Ruler use all of those strategies that we shared earlier on? I guess that's really the optimal question that, we're going to kind of be getting into at this point in time. So let's talk about that. And again, I'll say this for anybody who missed it. This webinar is being recorded. It will be available. We're going to send out an email to everybody thanking you for joining us, which is much appreciated. And then if you want to copy the recording, just reply and let us know, and we'll be happy to provide that to you and answer any other questions. So, got the platform? What is the platform? Well, Law Ruler is a platform that is designed to handle this intake problem. It is that solution that, employing that strategy and a platform. Imagine this. You don't have your car. You need a ride somewhere. In this day and age, are you going to pick up the phone and call a yellow cab and wait if Uber is on your phone? Definitely not. And if you call the yellow cab, there's that sense of comfort that the Uber is right down the road. It shows you a map. It shows you where the Uber is. It's going to pick you up. It's going to be there in, a reasonable amount of time that they're estimating inside their app. Most of the time, at least. So when there's a yellow cab, some of them have apps now, but frankly, this is a great illustration of intake at a firm that does not have a up-to-date strategy and platform. They are the yellow cab in this equation, unfortunately, because people are calling them. They're manually doing data entry. Okay, you're called. Let me take down your name. Let me take down your number. Somebody will go back to you soon. Versus the automated approach, where as soon as they call or come in through the web, they're automatically created, and then they get content that's relative to their need. So everybody these days just wants to press a button. So you want to give them that level of service because that's where legal's going as an industry. You also want to have a reliable place to have your platform hosted and all of your information, especially for personal injury and mass tort firms. You may not be aware of this, but the information that you're gathering, things such as describe your injury. Did you take Xarelto? Were you hospitalized? What body parts were injured? That is all called personal health information, and it actually needs to be secured in a HIPAA-compliant hosting environment. So Law Ruler is actually hosted in that environment, and it is an option available for our members. So just letting you know that. And part of HIPAA compliance, just to share, is, okay, I'm using this great cloud company. It's called Amazon, or it's called, GoDaddy. And we have our information there, and it's quite a deal. It's not even that costly to have it there. Well, guess what? If you don't have a redundant environment and something happens, we know this because we've used these companies before, and we don't now. We actually switched to a provider that mirrors the data across the country in real time in our cloud, because what happens is if something happens at our Miami data center here in this picture in the bottom right, it instantly within a minute is going to be available in our data center on the West Coast. And if something happens there, it's essentially, a triangle where the information's highly available, and it's also HIPAA compliant, extremely secure. So you should ask your suppliers that are hosting your information in the cloud if it's in a HIPAA compliant environment, and you should ask them if it's redundant geographically. What happens, if, hey, Miami gets, in 5 years goes underwater, God forbid. You want to have redundancy set in there. Good questions to ask. So do you have calls? Do you have leads? You want to do what we mentioned earlier as a strategy. You want to automate data entry, because if you don't automate the data entry, you cannot provide the response that the audience requires in this day and age. They require an immediate response. And I'm not referring to an autoresponder on your website. People can tell that stuff was created by a very low-end robot. Thanks for filling out our contact form. A member of our staff will respond to you soon. That's an autoresponder. You almost don't even want those. Those are such a turnoff to a potential client. You want to, if somebody is contacting you about a motor vehicle accident, you want to send them a text. and or email and call them if you don't get them the first shot for some reason. And it must be talking about a motor vehicle accident. Knowledge. What do I do after I got in an accident? Everybody wants to know the answer to that. That they're looking for help. And they also want to be made whole. But the immediate need is they need help. They need to know what to do. So you want to make sure that you're automating that data entry, because otherwise you can't automate the response, and you can't automate the response in the right way to be effective. So got text? Well, what does that mean? Well, good question. SMS text follow-ups are critical because these are some numbers that a lot of people don't know. 98% of text messages are read. 22% of emails are read. That's a big difference. That means text messages are almost 5 times more effective than email. So let's say, now let's look on the right-hand side. 19% of text messages actually have a response, a call to action. You send somebody a link that says, click on this, and we will e-sign you, and we will sign you up as a client. Or you have, a link that says 5 things to do after you get in a car accident. And there's a link to it with a video or content on your website. This is how you do those things. Emails. So out of the 22% of emails that people read, only 4% of those actually get a response. 4%. So 4% of 20%, you're hoping for a 5% outcome just with a strategy that employs email only. Because you net those out, you're looking at about 5% click-through. Click-through means they do something. They respond to you. They go back to your website, read your article, watch your video, sign your contract. 5%. That is not good. You want to do both. Because if you add 5 to 20, you get 25. 25 is pretty good. Got text e-sign? What's text e-sign? We have text e-sign that's all, it's court approved. It's very secure. And what it does is allows you, if you're on the phone with somebody, this is that one call close I was talking about earlier in the strategy department. This is where you have somebody on the line, they're interested in moving forward. You don't want to say, okay, well, we're going to set up a meeting with you for 2 days from now, and somebody's going to come see you in the hospital or go to your house, or you're going to come to our office. Because unfortunately, in those 2 days, even if they said they wanted to sign with you, there's an old saying, buyers are liars, unfortunately, because it's not an intentional thing. It's just that sometimes people find better options if you give them time to think about it. So if somebody's interested in working with your firm, renovate your signing process. Have text e-sign. Press a button while you're on the phone. Hi, did you receive the agreement I just texted you? Yes, I did. Okay, do you have any questions about that agreement? Well, are you going to help me with my car accident case? If I press this button here that says sign, we'd love to. We're going to do everything for you and make sure you have the best possible outcome. And we don't get paid if we can't help you. Oh, that sounds great. So I just press this button and then I'm going to become your client? Yes. And then you can send out somebody to meet with them if that's your process. Or then you can have them come into your office if that's the process. The key is if you have them and they're interested and comfortable with moving forward and becoming a client, you want to take advantage of that moment and fulfill that need. They want to work with you. Don't delay that process. If they qualify and they're ready to move, you have to proceed. Otherwise, you will lose 40% of those potential clients right off the bat if you don't close them in that first call. So it's nice to try and close someone in the first call, but if they don't, that's where you have the drip marketing that we talked about earlier. That's that strategy where you have those 6 to 7 touches. That is the industry average, 6 to 7 touches to sign a new client. So the first touch might be a text message saying, please click here to watch a video about how we helped somebody else who was in a car accident. The second touch might be while you're on the phone with them, hey, we're going to send you our contract now. Okay, that sounds great. It's going to come to your phone, text, and also email. Okay, wonderful. Well, I'm not ready to move forward right now. I actually have to, show this to my spouse or, whatever it might be. They just might, if they're not comfortable, you can't force it. Okay, that's the second touch. Third touch, after a day, there could be automation. We see that, are there any other questions you had about our agreement? Anything we can answer? Or even follow up with a phone call. So now you're up to 4 touches, an email, 5 touches. And then at that point in time, that's when you can have some kind of, additional content, a day later or 2 days later, maybe a softer touch. Here's actually a video of or a link about some of the things that you want to do, 5 things that you want to do after you get into a car accident. And that's the type of thing that's going to help you get those 6 to 7 touches in. So, and it has to be automated, because imagine if you get 100 or 200 or 1,000 inquiries a month and they each require 6 to 7 touches to be successful. That's a lot of work. And that's where you want to let your team do what they're great at, show empathy. Say the right things, give people knowledge, but you want to have that automated follow-up system, including text e-sign. So here's another interesting thing. Some firms know this, some don't. Online ordering of medical records. Inside Law Ruler's platform, we actually are integrated with a third-party company where if your firm has a paralegal on staff and you're paying them to retrieve the records, that is not a reimbursable cost against the case. If you hire a third party not on staff at the firm to get you the records and retrieve them, it can be applied as a case cost in your retainers and can be recovered against the case if there is a settlement and it goes through. So that's the advantage, other than simplicity and making things run quicker. So this is definitely an interesting thing. It's a newer feature that we started offering at Law Ruler in the summertime. So definitely worth checking out, where you order the records, you fill out the information, press a button, it orders them. When they come back, you get notified and they save inside Law Ruler for you automatically. Real neat. Referral management. This is something that a lot of people are not tracking well enough. Referrals is another source of accounts receivable. If you're not tracking your referrals, you can lose a lot of potential revenue. You want to have a system that has one-click sending of referrals that tracks everything. You want to be able to, at any given time, log in and press a button and run a report that shows you where all the cases you referred out went. You also want to be able to have automation that can follow up with all the places you sent the referrals, if you want that enabled, and ask them how the case is going. You also want to be able to press a button and run a report for each place you sent your cases to, and be able to take that spreadsheet and email it to your friend over at the law firm down the road who handles that type of specialty case, or the ones that you didn't engage, and say, here's the list. Please let me know what's going on with these. Those are the type of things where referrals are worth millions of dollars, and you want to make sure that if you are referring cases out, that you're tracking them very carefully, and the automation will help you do that too. So, I think it's fair to say that almost every law firm in the United States has something called practice management already to some degree. And again, practice management is not intake. It is not an intake platform. Practice management is after I have the signed case. I've already won that conversion war. So now I have them. They're my client. I'm now helping them. I'm representing them. I need to actually have my case managers and investigators and paralegals and everyone else at the practice make notes, set up treatment schedules, gather certain information, make sure everything is good to go. So we have actually integrated with a lot of the major practice management companies because, again, a lot of these companies have something in their software called a quote unquote intake wizard. That is not intake software. That is not going to automate things. No matter how they pitch it and how they sell it, it will never do it. Intake is its own discipline, and if you don't have a strategy and a platform and take that the way it needs to be done seriously, then it can hurt your marketing investments. So you want to make the most of those things. So we've actually integrated with all the companies here and more. So if you use any of these vendors, we have very good integrations into all of them at this point in time. So those are things that are available as well, because you don't want to have that issue where you're maintaining 2 separate files for each client, one in a system for intake like Law Ruler and one in the other system. You want to be able to sign them, push one button, and then have all of that information flow into your practice management system that the rest of the firm might be using. So just letting you know, we have that capability as well. And here's a testimonial from a client of ours in the Northeast. His name's Rob Levine, and this very successful firm doing disability, personal injury, and some mass torts. And he actually uses Law Ruler with a practice management software called Needles, and he's been very happy with our solution. So just sharing, that's something if anybody wants to read this and research further. So other than that, I don't have anything else to present. I guess this is kind of a little cartoon. Before Law Ruler, you see the net does not have many fish in it, so that's making me hungry. And then after Law Ruler, there are many fish in the net. So I think that's really the name of the game at Intake is, you want to make sure you capitalize on your marketing investments and that you help as many people as you can and that you are successful as you can be and that you improve on that process with the right strategy and the right platform. So I don't have anything else to present today. The recording is going to be shared after the webinar. And I wanted to again thank everybody for their time today. So appreciated. So if you have any questions for us, David Rodriguez from our team is going to be following up with the attendees, just sending a thank you email afterward. So any questions or you want to copy the recording, just feel free to let him know and he'll be happy to help you. Thanks so much and have a great day.